Warrior sucks, but they're at the top of our leaderboard, and we can't keep putting them on. So, or we can't stop putting them on because they're at the top tables. So this next one's going to be yet another Warrior matchup from a familiar face. It's going to be Colin, the boy wonder, Eriksen, and his gem buddy, Charles Dunn. Let's go ahead and bring up Charles' player profile because he filled out some silly questions for us. Charles Dunn, despite being a U.S. national champion and one of the mainstays in the game, says he can't play difficult decks. Wizards and Illusionists, in particular, are not his strong suit, and he only plays, in his words, simple decks, which is kind of crazy when you, I don't know, I think it's so interesting that even players at the highest level have these kind of like insecurities and hang-ups about certain decks in the game.
I mean, it's one thing to call your deck simple, but let's be honest, the way that Charles Dunn plays these decks, he's the de facto fatigue player for a reason because he does not play them in a simple way. He's very meticulous and very intelligent about his gameplay. Sometimes certain archetypes click and others don't, and I think that is, you know, Charles Dunn just showcasing he really likes to stick to what he knows, and he does it fantastically.
He's also really intelligent and obstinate about pizza toppings. I am totally in Charles' court about this bottom question. Pineapple absolutely belongs on pizza. And also, what is with the people gatekeeping what you put on your pizza? Get over yourself. You eat what you want to eat. I'll eat what I want to eat. How do you feel about it?
I got to say, for the first time in a while, I agree with you.
All right, good.
Yeah.
You don't want to put mayonnaise on pizza?
I was going to say, you literally just said you don't judge people for what they eat. So I don't know where that's coming from.
Hey, they can't judge me, but I can judge them, right? But it's mayonnaise, man.
Yeah, put it on pizza.
All right. Well, there it is. Let's take a quick look at the metagame before we head back on down to the match floor. We've got ourselves a lot of one-ofs, Vincets, Jarls, Azaleas, Kassais, Reinars, and Katsus. The Azalea has risen to the cream of the crop, but the Jarl, piloted by Mr. Come to Locals, Anthony Pham, is having a rough gem day. He has hit 2 news thus far, out of 3, it seems. I don't know what his pairing was in this next round, but bottom line, Anthony's down bad.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Towards the top tables, we do have Syndra. Both of our Kanos are Action 1 at the moment. I do believe Talon on Riptide has descended back down to the depths. Might not be seeing him in top 8 today. And then, of course, we do have some representation of Florian and Fang up at the top tables. We also have an undefeated Verdance, by the way, Michael. We just last round, we had 2 undefeateds.
Yeah.
And then our first round feature match competitor, Garrett, went ahead and took down that mirror. So going to be a really interesting top 8, but first we have to see how round 4 shakes out. So let's go ahead and be about it, shall we, Michael? Let's go ahead and head on over to the match area. Swell the music, producer Justin, who is just a bunch of sock puppets. And let's see this match between Charles Dunn and his gem buddy, Colin, the boy wonder Eriksen. From the AGE Pro team, of course, it's Florian Rotwood Harbinger versus Kassai of the Golden Sand.
Looking forward to the way this one plays out. 2 very excellent players in both Charles and Colin, and I love to see the really talented Flesh and Blood players hash it out on the battlefield.
I've said it once, and I'll say it again for all of you at home. Colin Eriksen is still pretty fresh in this game, but he got insanely good, insanely quickly because every tournament he went to, he would face off against this man on the left side of your screen. Charles Dunn honed Colin into the amazing Flesh and Blood player that he is before you.
So we're kind of watching a teacher versus the student.
Yes, I would say so. Colin is the, well, it remains to be seen if he's more of a Luke Skywalker character or a, oh God, what's his name? Guy from the new one, the bad guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Star Wars reference, insert here. Looks like Colin is just arsenaling and passing, and Charles is activating Life, putting Arcane Seed's Life into the graveyard, doing a little bit of early graveyard fill, doing his best Leviah cosplay, and then back over to Charles for an activation of the Grasp of the Arknight to kick things off.
And you know that Charles just loves those 1-card 4s as he's got the setup Grasp of the Arknight along with his Reaping Blade, cosplaying as his whatever 4-power weapon he likes to bring.
I'm sure he usually likes to bring the Frosty Hammer, but in this case, Reaping Blade will do the trick.
Interesting for Colin choosing not to stop all of that damage, going down to 37. Must really like his hand.
It's a pitch of a blue, something that he was very rarely able to do in his game against Syndra. Here comes Hot Streak for 2. Go again if Charles is blocking with an attack. He does, however, have a Canopy Shelter in hand, which is a perfect way to shore up the damage from Hot Streak. However, no on-hit effect here, so might elect to send it through. No, it's Canopy Shelter here, generating a Might token for his troubles and shoring up that damage perfectly. Colin Eriksen has a react, though. It's Blade Runner
First
giving
red
go again.
Blade Runner he's played on camera.
Which means that this Centauri Saber follow-up is for 5. Blocking 3 is Charles Dunn here. 2, no. 5 is going to leak through here because Colin has himself an in the swing. One of probably only 2 in the deck here.
Yeah.
So he's really happy to be resolving it.
Best offensive turn yet from Colin today.
And so early in the game, too, Michael.
Bodes well.
Passing back over to Charles. It's 36 plays 37 in the favor of our boy Wonder. And it's a Summer's Fall in the blue. First decompose already for Charles Dunn in as many turns. No auras, however, to bounce at this point. So definitely a more lackluster decompose here, but it is coming in for 5 thanks to that Might token that was popped at the beginning of the turn.
And Colin with a really efficient block there. Valiant Dynamos plus the Shelter from the Storm is exactly 5, so it takes no damage and has a nice 4-card hand to swing back with.
It's a trot along resolved on the combat chain here, which means the Centauri Saber is going to have go again. It's coming in for 5 as well because an Outland Skirmish has been played. Also going to be generating a copper token for his troubles on hit. There's 1 floating left in the pitch, which means Hot Streak can come in shortly after.
Yeah, 5 is kind of an annoying break point to block. We'll see if Charles decides to commit 2 cards to this and prevent the copper, or just kind of maybe commit the Sink Below and allow the copper to go through.
Make a might.
And looks like we've got our answer here. Canopy Shelter first.
I'm going to Shelter.
And there it is.
Charles has got defense reactions to boot. He's still holding 1 in reserve in the form of a Sink Below. Looks like he's destined for the Arsenal, though, and a Channel Mount Heroic blocks out that Hot Streak. So Charles is not going to be doing a whole lot on offense here. It's probably just going to be, yes, Grasp of the Arknight, swing Reaping Blade. Both of these players just trying to grind each other out with sheer numbers as best they can.
Yeah.
Oh. Looks like that Tunic might get a lot of value this game if he uses it like that.
Yeah, Colin popping that Tunic counter in order to just block out 1 arcane damage. Both these players know that this game is going to go the distance because not only have they played each other a lot, they've also been in fatigue states against each other a lot. I mean, Charles Dunn has probably watched Colin Eriksen and vice versa pitch Heart of Fjendal like 16 times in their past.
We've got a big card here coming out in the form of Spoils of War. If either of these swords hit, 2 copper will be made. So Charles really going to be looking to block this turn out as best he can.
Also confers go again here. So Slice and Dice plus Spoils of War equals a 5 power Centauri Saber with go again. Charles definitely wants to be blocking here. This is going to be a game of pennies and dollars. Colin Eriksen would really like to be generating as many coins as possible because he is going to live and die on blood on her hands and raise an army.
Reactions?
Looks like Charles has the perfect answer for this first Spoils of War turn of the game. This is one of the things about Kassai in comparison to like Fang, right? Like Fang really utilizes the reaction step and the instance in his deck in order to like force damage through. Kassai in general is much more face up with her damage.
It's more of an efficient play because each sword has +1 damage on it, just printed straight up. But yeah, like you said, it's not as tricky.
Boots and Rune Chants are flying this way and that, and also non-attack actions. It's an Outland Skirmish, a Spoils of War, a Slice and Dice, a Kassai activation, and we are just waiting with bated breath for Colin to send one of those swords. He's doing his best Azalea cosplay right here, Michael.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of offensive power right now, and importantly, Charles this time doesn't have a 5-card hand, so no D-React in Arsenal means the amount of block value this turn is going to be a bit lower, so we might see Colin connect and get a little bit of that copper that he so badly wants to set up some more burst to close the game out.
None in the hand either. Charles must be looking towards that Face Purgatory, but unfortunately Colin Eriksen only has a card in Arsenal, not in hand, so Face Purgatory is not going to do a whole lot of work here. Looks like it's all that damage is shored up. It was 8 on the Centauri Saber, blocked out by 3 cards from Charles Dunn. The follow-up is a Hot Streak for 4, still threatening 2 copper on this one. Colin, a little unfortunate that he's not able to
Look
force
at
the damage
that.
through here, but it is Iron Song response, I believe a 1-of in his deck, pushing this hot streak up to 7, forcing a little bit of damage through, and 2 copper for his
3.
troubles.
He's got the
Outland
Outland Skirmish. Is that only on the next attack?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
It's not like Spoils of War where it's every single attack here.
Well, yep. No, next time.
no, it's next time.
So
Okay.
3 copper, and he's halfway to all that he needs for a huge Blood on Your Hands turn. So really big development, and there's a reason Charles gave up his entire hand to stop that, but Colin had exactly what he needed to push it over. Big deal.
And based on Colin Eriksen's own analysis, he's even closer than that because in his mind, a 4 copper is all he needs in order to resolve a Blood on Our Hands.
Yeah, and looking at his hand, man, he is 1 blue away from a CNC pummel turn. Doesn't quite have it, but
scary, huh?
yeah.
And Colin has plenty of 2-cost attacks, even though he is a warrior, which is not typically the way he plays. He does have plenty of Nourishing Emptiness and CNCs to boot. Here we go. It is a Command and Conquer coming in. No pummel, though, because that pummel has been thrown into the pitch zone in order to resolve this card. But Charles now knows about it, and Charles is such a smart player. He's even voicing it here. Like
Yeah.
your pitch zone is not safe from the analytical eye of Charles Dunn.
The axis of complexity that he likes to play on is tracking the opponent's deck, tracking their hand, and being very aware of where all the game pieces are, rather than trying to piece together these giant combos.
We're seeing cards thrown this way and that. However, the life totals are really not changing all that much, Michael. It's 30 plays 34. Only 4 points of life separate these players, even though I would have to imagine we're in turn 8, turn 6?
Yeah, they're playing fast.
They're playing very fast, and they are both players, like I said, that are very comfortable going the distance, and that's part of doing this. Like, you never want to be a new player picking up like a Fatigue Oldham deck because you're going to lose to the clock more than you lose to your opponent.
Absolutely, as Colin now pumps up his Centauri Saber with one of these new, it's not draw sword, Unsheathed, there we go. Unsheathed, pumping it up to 5. Such a good card in Kassai. This card, it just confers +3 go again without any asks.
No ifs, ands, or buts. Colin is completely unsheathed here, but Charles Dunn has found his first copy of Rootbound Carapace here, which means that he is finally advancing his decomposed game plan. That's the one thing that hasn't really been happening for him so far. That being said, I mean, Kassai is one of those matchups where you can dirtle a little bit and still reliably get a lot of value from your hero power later on in the game.
And he is able to play that CNC out here. No arsenal for Charles Dunn, but still 6 damage is 6 damage. And when you're playing for the distance, cards that can do more than 3, that ask for 2 in exchange for 1, that's a meaningful exchange in a Fatigue matchup.
Colin more than happy to send the CNC here because he is not required to do his mini game of swinging 2 swords here because his Valiant Dynamos are already fresh and ready to block. So he's just going to save that for another day. He has, however, drawn himself into a couple interesting tech card here. It's Iron Song Determination, something that he put in to answer some of these more defensive tuned decks. We'll see if it helps him here. He's also got Blood on Our Hands. Maybe a good pair with Iron Song Determination, but I just don't think he has enough copper at the moment. And yeah, out it goes onto the block.
Yeah, just a bit too early. He's got one sitting at the bottom of the deck that he can rely on and one somewhere in the middle.
31.
Okay, 26 plays 31, still in the favor of Colin Eriksen as Charles Dunn passes back over. Colin is not going to be able to pitch that Heart of Fiendal for any value here. Perhaps that is part of Charles's consideration in terms of the way he's playing this game. Colin says, no, it's not time for Iron Song Determination yet. That is going to be devoted to the pitch deck to swing this hot streak for 2. There is a red Blade Runner in hand. Might just be a bread and butter Kassai turn because even though we only have 1 floating, we do have the Tunic counter at the ready.
Yeah, the Tunic counter is really, really important on this turn, so it's nice that Colin was able to keep that for this moment, bails him out a little bit.
I want to draw attention at this point to the fact that Colin is really holding on to these 2 gold tokens that he's got. It's nothing like the Syndra match that we saw earlier. His game plan here, and I think part of the the value proposition of Kassai is that she can play completely differently based on what her opponent is doing. He's holding on to these so that he can assuredly resolve Raise an Army for as much as possible when that card rears its head.
Yeah, that card is pivotal in any kind of fatigue matchup. But what else is pivotal is Charles Dunn with his Channel Mount Heroic, keeping a 5-card hand for the first time in this game and throwing a massive Command and Conquer. 9 coming in.
That is CNC for 9, and that is not something you see every day, folks. But if you are having flashbacks to Briar days, important to mention, a deck that Charles Dunn piloted to a massive victory at a U.S. Nationals not too long ago, then yeah, you're in the right place. If you don't know what a Briar is and you're new to the game, then welcome to the fold. This is something that can happen to you.
Yeah, is Colin bricked on any D-Reacts? Doesn't look like it.
First copy of Raise an Army, however, devoted to the combat chain there as a blocking card. Not quite time to buy those Cell Swords as of yet. Instead, Colin is just going to pitch a blue here, swing a Hot Streak, probably has some source of go again, like a Run Through or a Blade Runner in the arsenal.
I thought I saw Warmonger's Diplomacy hit the arsenal, but I could be wrong.
Interesting. Warmonger's Diplomacy would be an interesting arsenal against Charles Dunn.
Yeah, I could have just saw maybe some other blue, but...
Very curious. Okay. Well, Colin's got plenty of go again in this next hand. Curious that he didn't decide to like pitch that Raise an Army on that turn and set it up for later.
Right.
Especially when he didn't need all of the extra resources. Maybe that blue in the pitch was a bit of a bluff, or he's trying to fill his graveyard with more yellows?
Well, our producer, Justin, knows Colin very well and thinks it may have something to do with the number of yellows in his graveyard, which is an important metric for Kassai to track to get that gold that she so desperately needs for her army.
It's a fate foreseen into a sink below here. No sink, however, despite the fact that Colin has perfect information about the top of the deck. This E-Strike is coming in for 8, which has to mean that the chosen mode was go again because it got the buff from that Channel Mount Heroic. Yikes, and it's another Enlightened Strike. This Channel Mount Heroic has now gotten 9 points of value here.
I like the choice to push damage here instead of drawing the card. I think Florian is one of those decks similar to Guardian where you can just kind of like get a card that's not good for the arsenal. So even though it's technically more value to do the draw card when you have no cards in hand, that can sometimes clunk you up. So I think heads up play from Charles here.
When you expect the game to go long, it's important to get the maximum value out of the cards that are in your deck. Especially if you are expecting to be going to second or third cycle, you have got to get every number out of the deck that you can while you get there, which means that even though maybe he's sacrificing a little bit of value in terms of the card not drawn, it's still probably a smart play for the future.
That's a good call, too. That +2 threat density across the cards in his deck.
And it's back over to Charles, who has a 4-card hand. Colin probably A-okay with having to block out and give Charles complete tempo over this game because a Florian that's not online is probably not going to be able to make perfect use of 4 cards. That being said, it's Felling of the Crown in the hand and an Arcane Seed's Life. Charles may be wondering if it's not quite time to deploy that Rune Chant generator when he's not online as of yet.
And I think this puts him online because he can grab 3 Earth cards.
He should be able to.
Online?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you heard it here first, folks. Online, he is going to have to bottom a card to Felling of the Crown because it is a reciprocal effect. And down goes the Plow Under, which makes a lot of sense. He's really going to want to resolve that Arcane Seed's Life as soon as possible now that he is online. Colin is going to go ahead and take 5 damage and also lose a card from his hand. 19 plays 26, still in the favor of Kassai as we pass back over to her. And it's time for the first blood on her hands of the game.
With only 3 copper, it's a little bit lower value than Colin would have liked, but certainly still going to be a powerful turn.
Looks like the chosen modes are attack twice, go again, and +1, all on the Centauri Saber, if I read his body language correctly. We've also got a Kassai activation, which, since we're swinging 3 swords, that probably means that we're generating a gold token this turn. And Heart of Fiendal pitched for the first time this game. Unfortunately, no life gain, but that is a good problem for Colin at this point as he sits 7 life above his opponent.
Yeah, as that first Centauri Saber comes through, 3 go again is the ask. Charles with a sink below in hand and 5 cards to work with means it might actually be that he can block this all out.
We'll have to see. Colin is definitely hoping that he can't because he's still holding on with for dear life those 2 gold tokens that he's generated previously in the game. Here comes a second Centauri Saber. It is 3 go again, shored up by a sink below, which means that the last bit to do here is Hot Streak.
Just 2 on this one.
Charles still respecting it here. It is a flourish, which will block it out perfectly. No gold tokens for Colin. He has not reached that fabled 3 gold tokens for the Raise the Army that he is really trying to attain here. And he's drawn up his second copy of that definitive card from Kassai, and Charles is doing what Florian likes to do best.
Yeah, I think Colin is glad at this point to have attained the life lead, but I expect to see that start to dwindle as each blue in Charles Dunn's deck is now worth 5 points of value, and they're split across 2 attacks, arcane and physical.
Count your blessings, more like count your rune chance, is what Charles Dunn is playing here, even though he really liked that count your blessings card when it was in the format. No longer, however.
You can see Colin just taking it all, so I think he realizes that in this position, he really needs to be pushing the damage.
Activating Kassai is Colin Eriksen, following up with the last spoils of war left in the deck, which means that this Centauri Saber is going to be coming in for 4 go again, generate 2 copper on hit and also a gold. Will Charles respect it? Oh, and there's 2 cards in hand for Colin Eriksen. One of them is a Blade Flurry. That is exactly the card he needs to get over clean blocks.
Yeah, with Charles using 2 D-Reacts last turn, it might be the perfect opportunity.
Colin is very scared of D-Reacts normally, especially because Charles is still sitting on Well Grounded, the foot piece that can when you really need it to. That is an incredible... It was super annoying in Scepter Florian. It's even more annoying now because live in a world with me, Michael, where Charles does have a 0 for 4 defense reaction. He simply says no blocks here, covers up the 0 for 4 defense, covers up the 4 with a sink below or something to that effect. Colin says Blade Flurry. Charles Dunn says pop Well Grounded.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But, like you said, I don't... Ooh, is that a red Rootbound Carapace, actually?
And he goes for the Face Purgatory, yeah.
And Colin snap discards the Blade Flurry. He says that is not going to be necessary here anymore because you've already overblocked this attack.
Yep. He got the value that he would have otherwise out of it and just puts it in the bin.
A good point. Follow up here is Hot Streak for 2, still threatening 2 copper, still threatening 1 gold. Charles knows that he must respect the money generation of the princess in the sand. I think she's a princess. She's the daughter of someone important. I know that for sure.
All daughters are princesses.
Oh,
Far as good.
a very diplomatic response from my co-caster here. Where was that diplomacy when we were talking about mayonnaise?
You're the one. Never mind.
Colin has drawn up yet another Raise the Army here. Raise an Army here, and I think he plunked one of them into Arsenal. I think that was the card he elected not to discard to the Face Purgatory.
And
Remains
this
to be
is
seen,
a
though.
nice Tunic Plow Under turn.
No, don't want to plow under. Just
Yeah.
Oh, he does.
Charles pulls it back because Plow Under is also a reciprocal effect.
Yeah.
Gain 1. 6, gain 1.
Okay, resolving the Arcane Seed's life here for a whopping 4 rune chance and 1 life gain. And like you said, Michael, the life totals are getting ever closer. Colin might actually be happy if that was Raise an Army that went into the Arsenal to get it out of the way because he's got yet another one in hand.
But yeah, taking a lot of damage here is Colin, only giving the boots, needing to keep those cards in hand because he must pressure the life total of Charles Dunn and get him off of cards to do those high-value plays.
Charles' deck is drawing awfully well here. Another Arcane Seed's life. I think a 3rd Channel Mount Heroic. Oh my goodness, this is a monster of a turn. If only he had a Tunic counter, though, to send the Reaping Blade after all is said and done. I think Charles is very happy with that draw, though, and the life totals have now swung in the favor of our Earth Rune Blade. Colin Eriksen sits at 12 to Charles Dunn's 20 as he sends the 3rd and final unsheathed into Centauri Saber. Sorry, unsheathed into Kassai activation into Centauri Saber.
Yeah, coming in for a cool 5, and Charles is once again going to be asked the question, can I have some gold?
You think he's going to let him have it? I mean, this is a gas
I don't.
hand from Charles.
Charles just understands the value of that gold, I think, and how strong a huge army can be. And even though he has what looks like a huge clapback turn, you kind of mentioned he doesn't have the Tunic counter. And although it's tempting to keep a hand like this, if there's anyone that will fold a fantastic offensive hand, I think it's Charles Dunn.
He is a defensive master in this game. Briar was a monster of like a Cheerios aggro redline deck, and yet Charles decided to win U.S. Nationals by switching it to a fatigue list.
Yeah.
I honestly think that these two gentlemen are kind of cut from the same cloth, which is what makes their rivalry so fascinating.
I'm glad you brought up the Briar situation, because looking here at Florian, this is like the same kind of thing here.
He
It's
can't
really
quit
cool.
Earth.
I love seeing Charles back on this version of fatigue.
Charles Dunn is mud-bound and down, but
Yeah.
not out, that's for sure.
You know, I thought I was so confident that he would lay it down, but he is in the tank. He loves his hand, and he doesn't want to give it up.
I wouldn't either. I mean, Channel Mount Heroic,
Yeah.
Swarming Gloomveil,
I get it, but
Sock Puppets, where he's in the tank, not the Terminator tank.
look at that. And he gives up the well-grounded.
Okay. Does Colin have the reaction? It's the Blade Flurry getting over the top. No more well-grounded to shore it up.
Blowout. Stealing the CMH from Charles and still getting the on-hit, getting that extra gold into a Raisin army.
And Charles furrows his brow because this is the exact thing he was trying to avoid from Colin. He has faced down Colin's raised army time and time again, and this is exactly what Colin wants to see. It's 3 cell swords
Three's
coming
the
in hot.
sweet spot. This is what
Yep.
feels so good, because that's a blue. That's one blue right there, and they're coming in for 3 each, right?
Yes. So 3 go again here. Charles has his pen poised, which means that the majority of this is going to be taken. Colin, instead of sending a cell sword, however, sends that hot streak in order to refresh his dynamos.
And also because it's got the +2.
Exactly.
Value town, and now I'm curious to see how Charles deals with these. Is he picking them off one by one? I mean, he has the go again, which is really nice for this type of situation. So you got to imagine he's thinking about clearing the board, but this is going to give Colin Eriksen some breathing room with life totals at 11 to 12. This is a good time to be able to breathe.
Honestly, I think Charles even though he would have rather resolved that Channel Mount Heroic and sent this damage at Colin's face, it is very important to clear these allies the second they rear their head.
One interesting thing, too, about these rune chants is they're asking for a blue that could otherwise be sent.
And nevertheless, Charles says 4 at Colin's face. So 6 rune chants plus 4 go again. Colin takes 3 of those rune chants, has 4 physical still to deal with. He says no blocks, but there's a sink below at the ready. Currently, Colin sits at 9 to Charles 12. There's 1 resource left. The Reaping Blade. Where's it going to go, Michael?
Non-life.
That's a great question. Charles is wondering himself. Very tough spot. I think the way the value accrues from these is very, very dangerous, but also the way that he is asking for Colin's resource cards in exchange for rune chants, it makes it hard to convert them.
These two guys sitting across from each other makes me think of that scene in Looper where like the old self and the new self are like staring at each other in a diner. Like seriously, like they are. Look at the way they go through these graveyards. They're the exact same person.
Oh my goodness!
And they're just sitting across from each other like, well, here we are again.
Yeah.
Charles says, 9 life, huh? That is a big mountain to overcome. And Colin says, 9 life?
Yeah.
Shall I start pitching my Heart of Fandel, Charles?
Man, if Colin just got like the go again and 3 blues this hand, and Charles is going at Colin,
Block 1, take 2.
and Colin sounds happy.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you worked all game to establish this army, to go back to, I think it's Volcor, and retake the something in your father's name. Sorry, guys, I'm really, really bad with my lore, but I think it's something like this. Anyway.
Yeah, he's retaking his volcano right now as we speak.
Activate. Does everybody in Volcor own a volcano?
Yeah, it's like their real estate. That's where they build their houses.
Prime Volcano Real Estate. That's what Colin wants as he swings in this hot streak, which currently does not have go again, which it's going to need if he wants to swing out that board of cell swords. But there it is. Run through.
I will point out how much value he just lost by blocking those rune chants.
Yeah, that is fair. That is a fair point. But he does have himself a Tunic counter, which is going to basically every time it's up, get cashed in for 3 value.
Yep.
In this case, 4, actually, because he's going to send the Centaurs. Yeah. or kind of 5 because you're refreshing dynamos.
Good spot to be in, but once again, like,
I'll move to
it's close. And we do know that Charles is just taxing the heck out of the resources with this 1-2 punch, Reaping Blade, Arcane Rune Chant combo.
And it is a Felling of the Crown locked and loaded with a Grasp of the Arknight, no less. This is a lot of damage here. Charles, after deliberating for so long about the block of Channel Mount Heroic and then how to deal with these allies, maybe what he was saying when he said 9 life, maybe he was thinking, I can overcome that.
Yeah.
It's time to ignore these cell swords and send everything at your face. Colin says, yeah, this is a lot of mounting pressure here. Here's my Fiendal Spring Tunic, which is usually going to gain so much value all game long.
Take 3. Take 3, go to 2.
Going to 2.
Colin is down to 2. This game is reaching a fever pitch. Everything that we have seen up until this point has just been set up for this exact moment. Both players have been trying to find their way into an endgame state that is favorable to them. Colin hoping to be drawing a blue here, gives it the blow.
Gold. He has a Glint the Quicksilver in hand.
Which is A-OK. Another activation of Kassai here.
And yeah, having drawn is so nice to have free weapon attacks. That means every resource gets to go into these cell swords.
Hot streak is the attack here. 2, maybe go again if Charles blocks with an attack from hand. It's going to get it regardless because, like you said, Colin has got that Glint the Quicksilver and potentially another redundant source of go again.
I want to see if Charles sniffs out this Glint. He may say no blocks here. And if he does, that will be so heads up.
Having a really intense flick of the cards is Charles Dunn. This is his comfort zone, folks. Even though the tension is mounting for you watching at home, this is where both of these players shine.
6 life to 2. Colin with the attack, the army. Charles with the life, the hand, the block decision.
There is a non-attack in hand. Looks like it's equipment blocks here.
Oh,
Blade
he got
Runner.
the red Blade Runner.
No need to cash
And he's
in.
got
The
the blue.
Quicksilver
This is
here.
massive.
This is going to be so much damage here, folks. It's going to be 3 into 3 into 3, and then a free Centauri Saber for 5?
Yup.
This is exactly what Colin was playing towards and exactly what Charles was dreading every time Colin activated Kassai and said, give me a gold token.
He does have the resources to keep a card. He's still going to put a lot of pressure on Colin's life with the 1-2 punch.
3 more.
Okay, 3 more.
Oh, I forgot his Centauri's free.
Yeah, Centauri's free.
Oh my gosh. I'm wrong.
This might, I think this spells doom here. He takes 1 down to 4, and then Centauri Saber comes in for 5. Charles has to block here. It's another 2. He takes 3, down to 1. Colin Eriksen has all the tempo in the world, and 1 life remains for him to take to win this game.
It comes down to a brick. If somehow Charles can get Colin to draw no-go again.
Oh, no go again. There it is.
There it is.
I'm sorry, there was one more copy of Unsheathed. Colin
Wait,
knows he has it.
He doesn't have resources.
There's no blue, but still... Actually, this could be bad.
Yeah.
He does, however, have the Blade Flurry, and Charles is kind of out of attack reactions.
And
Yep,
there
Blade
it
Flurry
is.
should do it unless Charles has anything to say about it.
Yeah.
No, he extends the fist bump, and that is it. Climbing Mount Heroic, planting his flag for the Golden Sands is Colin Eriksen, proving that he is meant to be here.
God, I love Raisin Army. It's such a cool card. Hate facing it, I should be clear, but this idea, this game plan of like you're raising your army and then clawing your way back with these cell swords, and for it to end in such close fashion with Charles making that just such a tough decision to go face instead of clearing the army out, and he almost got there. It was so close.
Because Kassai has so many game plans, well, really, no, she has a lot more than 2 game plans at her disposal. Anyway, it's kind of like a pick your poison in terms of what deck you bring into her, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are the aggro, if you're the aggressor, you have to deal with incredibly efficient 1-card hands. If you're slightly slower than that, you're dealing with a big blood on her hands turn somewhere down the line. If you play a long con deck, you've got to worry about Raisin Army. And so it's kind of like not only does Kassai have all the options into every deck she goes up against, you also have to have the matchup knowledge into her in order to get there. Charles definitely has it, but Colin carried the day.
Yeah, and this was just such a fantastic game to cast, and I'm sure to watch as well, as these two players are some of the best in the game, and we got to see a masterclass on both sides of the table on how to pilot through these difficult matchups. And congratulations to Colin Eriksen for showing us why, even though nobody thinks Kassai is good right now, she is still the love of Colin Eriksen, and he pilots her masterfully.
One person in this room thinks Warrior sucks in general.
True. Maybe we'll get them to pair up next.
Michael, I think it is very important to mention, it's very appropriate at this point to mention that we have a new segment on the Arcane Games and Events YouTube channel. That is called Match of the Month. Every single month, we are going to ask you, the viewers, to help us choose one match that reigned supreme over the entire tournament. We're going to bring in the players from that match and have them do kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 commentary over the match, give us some insights, and hopefully have a ton of laughs. So
That's awesome.
If you are interested in voting in Match of the Month, if you have seen something extraordinary like what happened behind us today, get on over to our Discord. That's discord.age.events. That's our invite URL. And vote for Match of the Month. We'll be posting our selections. We'll boil it down to 3 for you to choose very shortly after this tournament concludes. And you can help us elect a winner.
That's awesome. Looking forward to that.
Well, folks, we have an interview with Colin the Boy Wonder, don't call me the Boy Wonder, Eriksen, in just a moment, and we will be back with that after this.
Welcome back, folks. We are fresh out of that nail-biter of a match, and I am joined here with Colin, insert nickname here, the Boy Wonder, don't call me the Boy Wonder, Eriksen. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a little rough after that Syndra game, but we picked it back up.
Yeah.
Got a few good hits.
I realized you have Go Again in your deck in this matchup.
I do have Go Again. Yeah, I know. Really surprising. Didn't expect to see it here. But Go Again and Go Again off the top at the end, I think really sealed that one.
Ooh, that was such a spicy hit, that red Blade
Red
Runner.
Blade Runner.
Oh.
Yeah. Brought him to 1 off that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a bit of a grind and a matchup that you're familiar with?
Yeah. It is something that came up a while back and then kind of went off now that they like stacked Florian and all that. And now that it's kind of banned, it's came back. And my whole goal in the matchup is to raise an army.
Yeah.
Like just turbo towards it, raise, done, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I set out to do. I got some gold, parked to raise an army in Arsenal. It got plow undered. I got another raise an army.
Yeah.
And then, it's an okay matchup, I think, especially with Crown Dominion. You start at 1. It feels good. Because he's on Channel Mount Heroic Florian, he does actually have more Go Again pieces, so the Raisin Army isn't as debilitating.
Well, there was a turn right at the end. He had that Go Again piece, and he sent that and his sword at you.
Right.
How did you feel about that decision?
That was interesting because he thought about it for a while because that was the turn. If you're gonna start hitting me, you're gonna have to keep hitting me until the end. If you're gonna hit the allies, hit the allies. And I think what Charles reasoned was that if he went Swarming Gloomveil at an ally, sword at an ally, send a couple rune chants, then what I'm doing is I'm still going to be threatening gold, I'm still going to be sending an attack, still going to be swinging with 1 sellsword at least, and I have an unknown card that ended up being a Sink Below.
Yeah.
But I had basically all the tempo, and even though CMH is really great, it does take some setup.
Yeah.
So he ended up going for me, and just hoping that I would have to commit too much, and kind of hope that it wouldn't hit off the top.
It did feel to me like you needed a really kind of specific set of cards at the end of the game. And one of the really difficult questions he was asking you was, what are you going to do about these rune chants?
Yeah.
Because you have to give that blue up that you would really like to send the sellswords with. And when I saw you block 3 rune chants with a blue, I started sweating because I was wondering if you had the resources to even send it back.
Yeah, that is a big point in the matchup, is the rune chants can be tough. Kassai usually gets like 1 blue a hand.
Yeah.
I'm at 18 blues total. So usually I ended up kind of pitching yellows. It ended up on that turn I had 2 blues. And then I had blue, Go Again, the extra blue for pitch, and then some blocking card. And that was good for me. But yeah, rune chants over the top can kill, and Arcane Seed's life is really good because it's always a break point. It's always 4 rune chance, and it's a 0 for 5 overall.
Yeah.
So really good value, and it's something that Florian can lean on towards the end of the game to try and beat the Kassai.
Yeah. I want to ask you, just kind of like over the course of the entire game, how did you feel the ebb and flow went? Did you feel like you were ahead the whole time? Were there moments where you started to feel worried at all?
Yeah, there were a couple. It was like going good. We filled graveyard. There was a point where he had CMH out. He developed CMH, and I looked at my graveyard, and I had like 6 yellows in it, which is enough for 3 Kassai activations. And I was like, maybe I should have activated last turn. I don't know, because I was up like 12 life at that point.
Yeah, you had a great life. It was like 31 to 19.
Right, yeah. But I kind of had a decision there, which was like, yes, raise an army is amazing, and we're still going to raise an army for 2 or for whatever we can. But just drawing a card off gold and keeping tempo to try and disrupt a CMH turn and to threaten more gold with more resources could also be really good. And I ended up saying, no, we're going to stick to it because we haven't seen the Raisin armies yet.
Yeah.
That means there's a pretty high chance that we're going to see them in the top couple hands.
Yeah.
And probably see more than one in case it gets disrupted.
Yeah.
And that was why I said, okay, we're just going to go through the CMH. He just sent 1 attack the first turn, ended up doing 2 the second turn. It's okay, you know?
Yeah. And I think those are the kinds of decision points that kind of make you stand out as a Kassai player, because they're very difficult decisions to make. It can be so tempting. You've got the gold right there. You can see how valuable it would be to just attack him right then and there, and to sacrifice that for the potential of later gain is one of the things that separates, the good from the great when it comes to these classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think one of the big level ups of me learning the class was like, sometimes I do pop gold. Sometimes, I have 4 gold and they're at like 10 life. Raise an army for 4 kills them, but raise an army for 2 also kills them. So if you're drawing cards, now you're exerting pressure. Now maybe you're getting a D-react in arsenal.
Yeah.
And that allows you to kind of close out games and not leave value on the table. Because when the gold's not spent, it does nothing.
That's true. I also, speaking of these other Kassai players, heard that there's this yellow line list going around, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain and ask you about that. What can you? What is it?
Yeah.
What is this yellow line list?
So the yellow line list has it had been floating around for a bit in the Kassai Discord. They wanted a faster list. A lot of people were really on grains, and some, at the very least, just didn't vibe with the slow game plan that I was proposing, and got on this card called Draw Swords, which is 3 cost, +3, +2, +1, and draw a card.
Right.
Which is okay. It's a sharpened steel if you ignore the draw card part.
Sure.
But if you can draw a card, and especially if you can get 0 cost go again, or have like a vigor floating, then what you're able to do is that turns into like +3 and then 2 resources, which is really efficient.
Yeah.
And so the Kassai lists were kind of on like 3 red, 2 yellow, and then this guy, I believe Andrew Rothermel, came out with this list that is fully into drawing. He's going high on yellow, so he's just constantly pressuring with Kassai. Even if he doesn't get it every time, you're taking cards out, kind of like Mask of Momentum, where even if you block Mask, but you took cards that otherwise could have been attacking.
Yeah.
And so he's on 8 Draw Swords. He's on 3 Seduce Secrets, which is a card that says that everyone was hyped about before Heavy Hitters released, and then immediately dropped off the face of the earth.
I keep peeking at that card for Acilio.
Yes.
I'm like, it's not quite
almost there,
but
yeah.
I don't, yeah.
But yeah, it allows you, if it's in Arsenal, you draw a card, and then the base text is you get to look at their hand and the top card of their deck. So info's good, getting
It's
yellow
so
in
good.
graveyard is good.
Yeah.
I do actually have one, I didn't bring it in for this matchup. But it's a solid card, and I think Andrew really created like a good hard aggro list.
Cool.
That I think performed well, and he won with it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like it's really cool to see the innovation there, because I think the list felt clean.
Have you played the list?
I have on Talishar.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of the cards at home. I suppose I could make it. But I think the reason I chose this list still, and I've adjusted a little more aggro, but not to his level, is that I really like the control it gives me. It's definitely my play style.
Yeah.
And it does it's that versatility and control where if I'm able to sit back, then I don't have to to take chances in the same way.
Yeah.
Like we saw in this game, I drew off the top of my deck. It was great. During Syndra, I drew off the top of my deck. It wasn't so great.
Right. So if you're relying on just
yeah.
top decking gas, you can just not
Right.
get there.
So the more you do it, even if the deck's built to be consistent and it's built to be good, there are cards you don't want to draw. And especially some of your blue cards, like a blue hit and run that I drew actually against Syndra, or even worse, if I draw Heart of Fiendal, or I have Ophidia in his list because to help with his draws.
It makes sense, but if that's what you draw, it's like, yikes. Gonna Arsenal that? No.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting list. I am going to still keep tinkering around with Kassai, especially now that the high seas cards have been spoiled. And boy, do we have a fable.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you're a bit of a budget player. What's your plans to get that one? Because you got to think with Kassai, probably Victor, all three high seas heroes. That is going to be one of the premium fables to have ever been printed.
Yes. Now, probably will buy it, but ideally, I just pull it, and that's it.
There you go. You just pull it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why didn't I think of that?
That's actually what I did with Dynamos. There
you go.
I opened up a bit of Monarch, was already kind of looking at Kassai, opened Dynamo, and went,
Sometimes the universe just knows what the right thing is to do and who to give the cards to.
Exactly. It knows I'm a Kassai player.
Yeah.
It'll give it to me.
Awesome. Any thoughts on like the upcoming high seas meta? Are you going to stick to Kassai still? Are you looking at any of the new heroes?
That's the thing. For nationals, I'm like, Kassai's up here, Fang's actually up here. A lot of the guys in the AGE team are really high on Fang, and they've been working together on a deck.
Patrick's doing great today. I don't know how his last game went, but he was at the top tables on Fang.
Absolutely. And then kind of lower down on my considerations are maybe Mario. He's good. He's Assassin Disruption.
Yeah.
And maybe Gravy. That is more of a silly pick, but Gravy's fun to play. I've done it on Talishar, like tabletop, and it's fun.
I'm gonna have to pick your brain on how to build that because that is a puzzle.
I'm gonna need to pick my own brain for how to figure that one out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are gonna be sitting down and going in the tank on that deck because he's tough. I mean, he's trying to do a lot of different things.
I know. Yeah, like you have so many cards. You want like 100 of them. So.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to look forward to in the upcoming meta. We've got the Kassai stand here, taking another great game off the back of Charles Dunn, one of the greats of all time here. And I think that about does it for our interview. So thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to take a quick break here. So don't go anywhere as we head into round 4 coming up soon.